Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jenna, and today I want to talk all about pregnancy after a 4th degree tear. If you are new here, I will give you a quick little backstory. So I had my first daughter in July of 2019. I had a 4th degree tear with her, and now I am 34 weeks pregnant with my second baby girl, and I always looked for videos before I got pregnant again. When I was trying to get pregnant, I was looking for videos about pregnancy after a severe tear, because tearing like that really affects a lot of things in your life. It affects your body a lot, and just your mental state in general too. So I was just trying to find someone else's experience being pregnant after having a 4th degree tear, and I couldn't really find anything. There's a couple other women on YouTube that make videos about 4th degree tears. I didn't really see anything specific about pregnancy after a 4th degree tear. So I wanted to talk about my experience. I'm not a doctor, obviously. I'm not claiming to have medical advice or anything. This is just my personal experience, things that I think are happening or have happened because of my 4th degree tear. None of it has been confirmed by an actual doctor or anything, but just things that have been different about this pregnancy that seem to tie in with my birth injury with my first daughter. So that's what I want to talk about today. I don't want to make this to scare you or anything, or scare you out of getting pregnant again, but I did just want to give my honest experience because I didn't know what to expect, and it would have helped me to be a little bit more prepared if I knew what things could happen in pregnancy again after a birth injury like that. I did just want to say before I get started that this will be a little bit TMI, because a 4th degree tear in itself is just a TMI thing to talk about. Many people don't talk about it for good reason, because it involves your lady parts and your back door. And so if you're not comfortable hearing about female anatomy or bowel habits or bladder habits or even intimacy, then maybe just don't watch this video. I don't necessarily want to make this video. I don't really want to share with the internet all about my problems and that private stuff, but I do feel that if I have been given an opportunity to help other women, then I need to use that. I have a couple other videos on my 4th degree tear recovery, so if you're looking for that, I'll link them in the description as well. So now we can talk about what actually has happened in my pregnancy and what pregnancy has looked like and how different it's looked after having a 4th degree tear. So when I got pregnant, my issues had already been sort of amplified. I think just because it had been time and time since I had been to the physical therapist or actively trying to strengthen my pelvic floor. And when I say pelvic floor, I mean everything in that lower region. So front, back, your lower abs, your hips, like everything, because it's all held together. So I hadn't been actively trying to strengthen that. And when I got pregnant, my OBGYN really suggested I go back to physical therapy and work really hard to get that strengthened again, because I was having just inconveniences with like the incontinence stuff. Not too much, but I'm 22 and I shouldn't be having problems like that at 22 years old. So I went back to physical therapy and we did some exercises, and that actually really helped certain aspects of my healing and control down there. And I did that for a while. I went a few times, and then we moved and I stopped going because our schedule got crazy and I just never made an appointment, and I haven't gone back since. And that was early in my pregnancy, probably only first trimester and maybe a little bit into the second. But if I can give you one piece of advice throughout pregnancy, it's to keep going to physical therapy, or start if you haven't, because the bigger you get and the more your baby grows, the worse your muscles are going to get down there, and it's just, you just want to do your best to keep them strong, because I did not, and I think that's why a lot of my problems have been amplified as pregnancy progresses. So when I did get pregnant, I seemed to have sort of like a regression in my healing progress. Not in the pain aspect, but in the strength aspect, which is understandable because your uterus is getting bigger and pressing and having extra weight on your pelvic floor muscles. So that was, I guess I should have expected that, because it's kind of like, you would think that'd be common sense, just knowing that if there's more weight pressing on muscles, they're going to get weaker if you're not actively trying to strengthen them. But it was kind of a shock to me and kind of discouraging because I felt like I was doing pretty well. And then I just went backwards, and I feel like I'm still going backwards because at this point I'm 34 weeks pregnant. I'm gonna have the baby in like a month and a half, and I just feel like going into physical therapy right now, it's kind of like, I don't want to even say it, but it seems like a waste because I'm gonna have to like start from scratch after this baby anyway. So I'm just waiting until after that, and then we'll go from there. So what actually happened throughout pregnancy that has made this pregnancy more difficult than my first isn't even pregnancy related. It's all tear related. It's all pelvic floor muscle related. TMI, incontinence issues have been amplified like crazy. I just don't have barely any control over anything. Either type. I hate talking about this stuff. It's so embarrassing, and I feel like I'm just putting everything out there that the internet does not need to hear. But it's the truth, and I don't want anyone else out there struggling through this to feel alone, and I don't want you to be taken by surprise if this happens to you when you're pregnant. But yeah, it's really hard for me to leave the house for longer periods of time, or at all, honestly, for my anxiety, just like having the fear that I'm going to have a problem in public. It's been really tough, and I've had a couple mental breakdowns just being like, oh my gosh, I feel so broken. I feel like my body is just like destroyed, and I'm only 22. It makes it feel like everything's such a hassle to like leave the house, go on a trip, anything. I just always had to be really prepared, and it makes me feel like I'm sort of a burden, and I don't want this to come across like dark or whiny or anything, but it's so mentally draining feeling like you're like holding people back because you have these issues. And yeah, it's been really tough. So the incontinence issues have gotten much worse throughout pregnancy, worse as pregnancy goes on, because again, the weight, it's like a big bowling ball just sitting on your pelvic floor muscles that are already almost non-existent. That's the main thing. The second thing that has happened is the pressure down there is very, very intense, and that has also been really difficult. But I think that also happens in like subsequent pregnancies, even if you don't have a tear, just because your muscles are like stretched from before. I'm not really sure. Another TMI bit is that after sex, it is very sore and it feels very full of pressure. Like there is a literal bowling ball trying to like weigh down your pelvic floor muscles. My third one is the mind muscle connection is still gone. So I talked about this in my 7-month postpartum update, I think, but like when you go through a traumatic injury like that, especially in such a sensitive area, sometimes your brain and muscles can disconnect so that your brain like doesn't remember the trauma that it went through, and that has happened to me a lot. I don't know how to like activate those muscles, and it's gotten worse throughout pregnancy. I think this is my theory. Again, none of this is like backed up by evidence or anything, but my theory is that my brain knows I'm getting closer to delivery, and it's like trying to disconnect from the possible pain that it will feel, or like remembering the pain it did feel before. I'm not sure. It's almost like an instinctual survival mode type thing, I feel like. But I think when I do start going to pelvic floor therapy again, that it will come back. Because when I was going, that helped a lot to strengthen that connection between my brain and pelvic floor again. So I hope that will be better when I go back to physical therapy again. The last thing that has happened that I think is related to my tear throughout this pregnancy was a lot of weight loss in the beginning. I still have a really hard time gaining weight like I'm supposed to throughout pregnancy. I've gained a lot less this time around than I did with my first pregnancy, but in the first trimester I lost, I think, 10 pounds very early on, and I wasn't even throwing up much from morning sickness. I did have nausea and food aversions and things like that, but I wasn't throwing up really, and so I shouldn't have been losing that much weight, but I did, and it's because once again, TMI, my body wasn't absorbing nutrients and things were just passing through too quickly, if that makes sense. And at first I thought it was my IBS because I have irritable bowel syndrome. However, I did talk to a gastroenterologist to just discuss my like gastrointestinal problems and our plan of action for that, because we thought that was the issue. But she thinks also, along with my IBS and digestion problems, she did think it could possibly have something to do with my tear as well, because when you have a 4th degree tear, it tears all the way through the back, which tears through part of your colon, and so much muscle damage there could be causing lack of absorption of fluids and nutrients and things like that. So it could just be like a dead muscle sort of, and we don't know the extent of that because it can't be tested yet until after I'm not pregnant. But I personally think that that's what is happening, because I've never had these types of issues before my tear. Even though I did have digestion problems like this, they were never like this, you know. After pregnancy, I'm going to meet with a colorectal surgeon, and we're going to test how much of that muscle is alive and well or dead, and if I need reconstruction and things like that. But yeah, so sorry, I'm getting really out of breath. You can tell I'm in the final stages of pregnancy here. That's all like the different things that I've experienced throughout pregnancy. Now I just have a couple questions to answer from Instagram. I just have like 3 questions that people asked on there that I wanted to go over quickly. So one thing I did want to say is part of a question on here, so I'm glad that you asked this question. But the question is, did your doctor say it's likely to happen again, as in another 4th degree tear? I got a lot of mixed answers about this from all the different providers I've seen so far this pregnancy, or since my tear in general. So let me just tell you what my providers have said to me. So the doctor who stitched me up, he is a vaginal surgeon specialist. So he specializes in vaginal surgery and tearing and things like that. And when I had my 3-week postpartum checkup, just to make sure all the stitches were in the correct place still, he said he had just been to a conference that said all the previous data showing that if a woman has a tear, they're likely to tear worse or the same again in the next pregnancy. That's kind of like out the window now. And the new studies show that if you've had a severe tear during childbirth, you're no more likely to tear that bad or worse again than a woman who has never given birth before. However, my normal OBGYN told me that it is likely to happen again or worse, and that I should consider C-section. And then I switched to seeing midwives, and they assured me that it is very unlikely for that to happen to me again, especially in, you know, a facility like a birth center, because it's just a more peaceful, natural experience, and you get to birth the way that your body feels natural, and that just automatically has a better chance of not tearing. So I'm just gonna hold on to that and hope for the best. The next question I want to answer is there anything you can do during pregnancy to prep for a second delivery? So I don't really know, because I feel like I did all the right things with my first pregnancy to make sure I didn't tear, and then guess what? I got a 4th degree tear. So the things that they say help are to do perineal massage with like olive oil or coconut oil, just to sort of like soften up the muscles and tissue down there. So you're supposed to do that in like the last few weeks of pregnancy, and then also during labor, I believe. And then the other thing is just like stretching. And then during delivery, you can do water birth, which drastically decreases your chance of tearing. You can labor in the water, which also decreases your risk of tearing. And not pushing on your back also decreases your risk of tearing. So those are things I plan to do. The last question is, do you have any anxiety about it happening again? And I did for a while, until I started to go to my birth center, and I feel very confident that it's not going to happen again, or at least not as bad. And even if I get a 2nd or 3rd, it would still stink, but I would feel thankful that it wasn't a 4th. And I do feel confident that it's not going to happen that bad. I've been praying a lot about it, and I've been doing a lot of just mental preparation, and also I get to birth the way that I want to this time. So I feel at peace about it, and I'm not too nervous about delivery again, because the studies showing water births and delivering not on your back decrease your risk so much. So I'm excited for labor and delivery. I do have a slight bit of nervousness just for the recovery if it does happen again, because that was brutal. But I'm not scared of it happening again. I'm scared of the recovery if it does happen again, if that makes sense. With that being said, I'm gonna wrap up this video. I've been talking much too long. I hope that it helped any of you who may be going through this, maybe are pregnant after having a 4th degree tear, or are trying to get pregnant and are just scared. I hope that this didn't scare you more. I hope it did help you prepare mentally, physically, give you ideas of what to do to make it not so hard on yourself. Go to pelvic floor physical therapy. I'm telling you, don't wait till you're not pregnant anymore. Go throughout your pregnancy. Please. Just please, it will help you a lot, okay? Don't neglect yourself. But I know it seems kind of intimidating and discouraging, and that's not my intention, but sometimes the truth is not fun to hear. So feel free to message me on Instagram. I'm a lot more open one-on-one than I am on the whole internet. I will answer any questions you have, no matter how TMI it may sound. I don't really care as long as it's one-on-one. I just don't want to put it out there for everyone. Again, there's also a 4th degree tear support group that is very helpful. I can link that in the description as well. And yeah, I hope that you guys have a good rest of your day, whatever you're doing. Thank you so much for watching, and maybe I'll see you back next time.